Good afternoon, and welcome to True Crime Mysteries. If you are new to the channel, hello and welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. Today, we are discussing 3 missing teens that turned up years later, alive and well. But first, this is your friendly reminder to subscribe to the channel, because I make more content like this, and we are so close to 100K, and it would be amazing to hit that milestone. But with that being said, let's get into it. Number 1. Aubrey, Jayce, Carroll. It was on May 24, 2016, when Aubrey Jayce Carroll was dropped off at the bus stop by his father, Michael. The family had recently moved from Griffin, Georgia, to Jones County, an hour away. Despite the move, it had been decided that Aubrey would be allowed to finish the school year at Spalding High School, and every morning they made the long drive to the bus stop. 15-year-old Aubrey was described as sweet and a good kid who never got into trouble. So it had been a surprise when Aubrey wasn't at the bus stop after school when his stepmother, Leah, went to pick him up. His father and stepmother called around to various friends and relatives' houses, but no one was able to find the teen. They called the school, and teachers and staff said nothing had seemed amiss with the student. He had gone through the school day very normally and had even sat for one of his final exams. Eventually, his father made the decision to report Aubrey missing. Initially, the case was considered a possible kidnapping, though detectives had been able to piece together a timeline of the days following his disappearance. They determined that following the end of the school day, Aubrey had gone to a friend's house where he had been allowed to stay the night. The following morning, he went to another friend's house, but he wasn't allowed to stay and had been instructed to go home to his parents, but he had been given breakfast and some water. He then walked to a third friend's house, where he asked for a ride to the nearest Flying J truck stop. From there, detectives say they lost track of the missing teen, which was May 26th. Aubrey's father and stepmother said they had no idea why their son would want to run away. Though they did admit that Aubrey had gotten in trouble the previous weekend, but stated that wasn't a big deal, and declined to elaborate on what that incident had been, or the subsequent punishment. Aubrey's mother hadn't learned of his disappearance until weeks later, only learning of her son's disappearance from an Amber Alert on social media. She had been shocked to learn that her ex-husband and his wife actively deceived her. She had repeatedly tried to call and arrange visits with her son, but had been told he wasn't home or didn't want to talk to her. It had been this that made her suspicious of Michael and Leah. According to her, Michael and Leah ran a very strict household, and Aubrey was often getting in trouble for small things and constantly put on restriction, which was a frequent punishment that put limitations on him seeing his friends. Michael claimed that because it was clear Aubrey had run away, there had been no need to alert Aubrey's mother, because he was likely to turn up at any point, and there was no evidence to suggest he was in danger. At that point, we felt like we were going to find him and everything was going to be okay, Michael said of the situation. Aubrey's case was listed as a runaway, and the investigation quickly cooled. Aubrey's family had been critical of the Griffin Police Department, accusing the officers involved of not doing enough to find Aubrey. On Aubrey's 16th birthday, friends and family held a candlelit vigil in honor of the missing teen, and to appeal to anyone who may have information about Aubrey. A year after his disappearance, his case was reopened. A new sheriff had taken over and wanted to start the case from the beginning. The sheriff's department had even offered a $5,000 reward to anyone who could confirm contact with the teen. In April of 2018, during the new investigation, detectives discovered a Facebook page that seemed to be Aubrey using an assumed identity. They searched the identity and discovered there were 5 incidents where Aubrey had encountered law enforcement and given them this new name. They had been able to track some of his travels, from Alabama to Arizona, and determined that he was traveling with a group of people who were also living a nomadic lifestyle. The families were notified of the Facebook page, but all had agreed to not reach out to Aubrey in case he went into hiding again. They decided instead to wait until law enforcement could catch up with him and pick him up. Now 17, Aubrey connected with FBI agents and was able to give them his story. He told us that he left on his own and had not been abducted, hurt, abused, exploited, or harmed in any way. He gave this video message to prove he was okay.
Hey, my name's Aubrey Carroll. It's nice to see y'all.
Aubrey, if there's anything that you wanted to say to the people that have been praying for you and looking for you over the last, year and a half, what would you want to say to them?
Well, I'd like to tell y'all thank y'all so much for all your prayers and looking out for my mama. I appreciate y'all so much. I'm all right. I'm okay. I've been smiling, and y'all should do the same.
After it was determined that Aubrey was safe and had left on his own accord, a family member reached out to him through Facebook. The family member convinced Aubrey to call his mother, which he did. He and his mother had several conversations, and eventually, he said he was ready to come home. However, there were certain conditions that he wanted in place, such as who he would talk to and where he would go when he got home. Aubrey returned home to his mother. Now, authorities and family members are just glad to know Aubrey is safe. How the story ended doesn't matter. Who gets credit doesn't matter, Sheriff Dix said. Aubrey's family, supported by friends and the tenacity of the investigators working on this case, saw this through to the end. What matters is that he is safe, healthy, and unharmed. Aubrey has said that in time, he will come forward with his story and reveal what his 2 years missing had been like. Number 2. Emily Paul. April 13th, 2013 had seemed like any other morning to Pam Myers Masamani. Pam said that she had left for work a little earlier than normal and left her 14-year-old daughter, Emily, at their Southport, Florida home. When she returned from work that day, she was surprised that Emily wasn't home from school yet. She looked into her room and saw a note waiting for her. The 3-page letter indicated that Emily had run away and that she would return when she was 18, but she didn't want to be found. Pam called the police, and an investigation began. Missing belongings showed that Emily had packed a suitcase with clothing, an Xbox, and her favorite items. Her cell phone pinged last near the home and then completely went dark. Officers also found several Google searches on the family computer. Numerous How to Run Away Successfully articles had popped up as a recent search. Pam gave no indication why Emily might have wanted to run away. According to her, she and Emily were extremely close and happy. She resented people for insinuating that something must have been wrong for Emily to run away. Officers never treated Emily's disappearance as suspicious. A neighbor believed that they saw Emily get into a vehicle with someone the morning she disappeared. But after that, there were no more confirmed sightings. Officers had gone as far as looking in Canada and Spain to track down the missing teen. Emily hadn't logged into her Facebook page since she disappeared and seems to have left everything behind. Her case soon went cold without new leads, leaving Pam hopeful that on Emily's 18th birthday she would return. However, Emily's birthday came and went without anything. In July 2018, a letter came in the mail addressed to Pam. The writer claimed to be Emily, and though the contents of the letter were never released, it had convinced Pam that it was truly Emily. Investigators analyzed the letter, but they weren't positive it wasn't a cruel hoax. They made this plea on Facebook to try and connect with the now 19-year-old.
Emily, if you'll do this, then I can close this case and I can have a peace of mind knowing you're okay.
30 minutes after the video went live, they received a call from Emily. She said that she was safe and claimed her call wasn't made under duress. They asked if she could come into her nearest police department, to which she agreed. Within an hour from the video being posted to social media, Emily Paul was standing in a police department, with various pictures and evidence used to confirm her identity. Officers said that she arrived at the police station alone and in good health, Emily said that she was happy, had a support system, and was good where she was. The Bay County Sheriff's Office is not disclosing where Emily is, but said in a statement, "The missing persons case of Emily Paul is officially closed," adding, "We would like to thank everyone who spent countless hours trying to locate Emily over the last 5 years." Number 3. Sabrina Allen. It was 2002 when Greg Allen's life changed forever. On the tail of what had been a messy divorce, and even messier custody battle for his 4-year-old daughter, Sabrina, things had started to look up. Greg, an engineering scientist, had been granted primary custody, and after months of fighting with his ex-wife, Dara, things had started to get easier. They were falling into a good routine, and the parents were beginning the road to cooperatively co-parenting. Greg brought Sabrina to her mom on April 19, 2002 for the weekend. It had been agreed that Dara would return Sabrina on Sunday evening, but she never showed up. Greg recalled the last goodbye before the drop-off. Sabrina had looked at him and said, "Daddy, don't ever forget me." At the time, he thought it had been a silly little exchange, but had turned into an almost sinister warning. In the early stages of the divorce, Dara had often threatened to take Sabrina away. Dara was from Mexico and had wanted to return there with Sabrina since the beginning. When Greg was granted primary custody, the courts had agreed that Sabrina should stay in Texas. There had even been several wild attempts to convince the little girl to lie in order to be granted protective orders from Greg. Sabrina had been taken from school once by Child Protective Services, where she allegedly told a social worker that, "My daddy hits my mommy. That's a lie my mommy told me to say." Greg called the police 2 hours after the time of drop-off had passed. He had made several attempts to reach Dara, but all efforts went to voicemail. But by then, it was too late. Dara and Sabrina were long gone. In addition to the police and Texas Rangers, Greg also hired a private detective. They tracked their whereabouts to the Texas-Mexico border, and they were able to confirm that Dara and Sabrina had purchased bus tickets to Mexico. Greg alerted all of the missing children agencies and started his own website to generate tips. He also took a leave of absence from his job and went to Mexico City, where he tried to search for his daughter himself. Greg quickly learned that his lack of Spanish skills was holding him back, so he enrolled in an immersive Spanish class to learn the language as quickly as possible. Greg had been in Mexico for almost a year when he got his first solid tip. A teacher reached out and said that she had a student who she believed was his daughter. She was blonde, the same age, and didn't speak much Spanish. She had been called Blanca because of her fair hair. The teacher said that Blanca had been extremely distressed. She would get upset because she couldn't understand the other children and had begged the teacher to help her find her daddy in Texas. Only then did the teacher look online and saw Greg's website. She had looked Greg up and was shocked to discover that Greg was living 30 minutes away from his daughter. Greg brought the information to U.S. police and officers in Mexico, but because of the need to coordinate, by the time both agencies worked out a game plan, Dara had taken Sabrina out of school and relocated. Greg was devastated, but continued the search for his daughter. He stayed in Mexico, took every opportunity to get his case in the media, and offered a $20,000 reward for information. Greg eventually remarried. He had fallen in love with the woman teaching him Spanish, and the couple married after 3 years. They now have 3 children together. 12 years after his daughter had been kidnapped, there was a new tip brought in from one of the private investigators Greg had hired. They found Dara in a small town outside Mexico City. They staked out the apartment for 2 weeks until they confirmed what appeared to be a teenage girl in the apartment. She had dark hair and was now 17, but showed no signs of physical harm. Officers moved quickly. They arrested Dara and had Sabrina, who now went by the name of Fair, on a plane back to the U.S. Sabrina had not gone to school since 2003, had her blonde hair dyed dark to conceal her identity, and had not been allowed to leave the apartment for fear of being recognized. Dara had also undergone several operations to change her appearance. Sabrina was not immediately released to Greg and his family. She underwent extensive therapy to work through many of the traumas she had experienced for the last 12 years. She had been confused and frightened about the relocation, and years of hearing bad things said about her father made her not want to see Greg. In fact, she had been told he had committed suicide and abandoned her. Eventually, with family trauma counseling, they were able to rekindle their relationship, and Sabrina moved into Greg's home he shared with his wife, Mariana, and their children. Dara was extradited back to the U.S., where a judge sentenced her to 6 years in prison for aggravated kidnapping and interfering with child custody. Dara's sister also testified against her, citing strange, unhinged behavior, such as writing to their elderly mother pretending to be their deceased father. Greg said in a statement, "Sorry for all the silence, but we have been necessarily focused on healing. The past year has been quite a roller coaster ride, but I like to think that we are past the hardest parts. I'm happy to report that I have a strong and growing relationship with her. We still have trials ahead, but we are doing well." Well, that is it for this video. Please let me know if you want me to cover more missing persons cases, as I found this super interesting to research. As always, please give this video a thumbs up if you liked the content, and subscribe for more if you haven't already. Also, don't forget to turn on that notification bell so you get notified when I post. If you have done all that and want to support me and the channel, we have channel membership and Patreon to get early access, members-only content, live streams, and more. We also have merch and other goodies in the description box, and links to all my socials. But until then, I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.